Okay, Brian, here's your capture from this morning, and I'm just going to take you through some key positions here going in the backswing. Talked obviously a little bit about your setup and how when your shoulders are open and you're leaning a little bit left, it can create what we call pop out, and that's what leads us to a initial disconnect here as you work your left shoulder from being too open. It basically pops the hands out away from your body, so it's like your hands are traveling towards the golf ball or towards the target line, if you will. And you can notice the biggest difference where Tiger's left heel pad is pressing down, so that's pressure point number one. That's a key for you to develop the feel for this. And notice how the hands stay inside of, as they travel back inside of the club head. Right wrist is bending backwards during this process, and this gives the whole upper body a pivot into that right side where basically the arms and the body stay together. Some people call it a one piece. The other noticeable factor in this frame would be how the right leg remains flexed and engaged. Basically, our fifth pressure point, that right knee, has to remain flexed as we pivot. So the right hip can go behind us, but that right knee needs to stay flexed. So you manage to sort of support this quite nicely with the left wrist. In other words, the shaft and the left wrist are staying in a pretty good relationship or alignment, if you will, as we go up to the top and finish Tiger's top of backswing. Again, what you're looking for is a relatively parallel relationship there with the initial plane angle and very wound, cocked shoulders with, again, really good structure for that golf shaft with the pressure points in the hands. What happens for you is, because of that disconnect early on, there is a late pivot or late turn right in here. You can sort of see the way your legs and upper body try to turn things. And when that happens, the hands are a little bit more behind the body and the shaft's a little bit more across the line like this. And often it can come out of pressure point number one. In other words, you lose the pressure in the heel pad and can create this cupping action in your left wrist. The right leg, you can see, has basically straightened out, so not a lot to push off of there, and that's we want to create that trigger in our downswing so that as the shoulders are cocking and finishing the backswing, we have the lower body doing what it's supposed to do, and that is be changing directions almost before your hands and arms finish the top of the backswing. So you see most of these good players, their lower body starts their downswing prior to their upper body finishing the cocking of the motion. You have to rotate your upper body and your lower body, but rotate more than you can go straight down. So you're rotating things out towards the target line, and that this creates a steeper angle of approach. And notice how you've lost the angle between your shoulder and your left arm. So Tiger can move his down quite a ways, usually to about low point before he starts to lose this angle here. And you can see where your angle's gone. So that's a lot of heavy power as you pivot or unwind through the ball. Tiger can use the entire radius of his body as he rotates his left arm back into line with his shoulder. Yours is back early, so you lose some of that heavy power, we call it, through the shot. And then there's often a lot of flipping that has to take place with the hands, so there's a lot more hand action that needs to be timed, whereas Tiger's looks a lot more stable. And that's what hits the ball further and straighter up into a good balanced finish. Is always a great recording of what you've done. And so there's some things there that really, from the starting position to the takeaway route, faults often are in the start, And we just need to be aware of them, and then we can actually start working on them properly when we practice. So good alignments at the beginning with the shoulders and getting the center of balance a little bit better will help tremendously. Thanks, Brian. Okay, Brian, on the face-on capture with the same series of motion capture that we want to see the view from this angle. You can kind of capture a little bit more of your start position here, where I've drawn a couple graphic lines on the posture, the sides of your body, and you can see the difference in your left shoulder, hip, and leg versus the right shoulder, hip, and leg of Taggart. So you can kind of see the difference in the setup, a little bit more positioned in his right thigh, right groin area there, and you can certainly see by the sternum how his tilt is a little bit more to the right, the bill of his cap. So you can kind of just see all those things. He's a little more settled into the right thigh already, and your left shoulder is turned towards the target, and his are a lot more in line with the target. So we capture most of that in the lab when we show you and illustrate that to you from that perspective. The other thing you can see is the shaft's a little bit straighter, pointing more towards the center of his body or center of his hips with his 7-iron. Your 7-iron is leaning a little bit more forward. So again, all these things are contributing to the open motion, and then when you start to take it away, we showed you from down the line, you can see how much rotation before you even move the golf club, how much rotation you have in your forearm and the wrist. So it's like the glove logo is now turned completely, and you watch Taggart's glove logo not there until about he reaches just past his right thigh here. So in order to maintain that, he has to rotate his shoulders and his upper body a lot more, to get to that position. And for you, when you rotate that much, there's going to be pop-out, as we showed you from down the line, and separation between the body pivot and the arms. So you can really see it here. And of course, quite often the club will also separate, go in behind you, or bend, get on that bent plane line, which is just another factor that you would have to fix on the way down. So you can see the difference in the way he's stepping into his right side, and we talk a lot about this. We want to get a little more range of motion for your arms, so your arms aren't trapped as they try to lift the club up and cock your shoulders. In your case, you actually have to create range of motion by continuing to move more around, and that causes a lot of head movement and just a lot of extra motion in the legs, and the stability that you see in these guys, and Taggart in particular here, as we use him to illustrate, you can really see the difference in the left knee and the right hip, and of course the upper body's quieter and therefore more stable. Your start down will usually have some kind of response to what you did as you arrived at the top. So you're going around, and now you're going to come back out around. So it's a lot more rotating rather than Taggart went up, cocked his shoulders, and now he goes down. And when you go down, what happens is that triggers the hips to push the weight over a lot easier. Basically, the tailbone travels back towards the target, and every good player does this. It's called axis tilt. So what happens is the tailbone keeps going that way. His arms stay behind him basically, and really maintaining the angles that he created in his backswing so that he can carry them forward and have a lot of speed. The velocity comes from those hands basically uncocking. And for yourself, what you'll do is you'll find the club will be coming out of that right bent wrist too early in this range here, or you'll be trying to force it to stay in there, which causes the flipping, which is the look of this impact condition that most people deliver, versus this impact condition where you have compression owing to the forward lean in the shaft. And again, when you have axis tilt, it continues, and that allows this left shoulder to go nice and high, so you have lots of room for the right arm to do the hitting. In your case, the left shoulder didn't go high enough. Your left arm couldn't rotate everything back to square, so you flip, and often loses the pressure. You can see the pressure on the handle that Tiger continues to have. So that professional impact is achievable and certainly desirable. May not ever be able to swing as fast as some of those guys on tour, but everybody can achieve professional impact. So we'll keep working on those pressure points and understanding the alignments at address and training those hands. We need to get the hands educated, and that'll be a huge hurdle. Thanks, Brian.